the rest of Chapter 5. Suddenly, she saw an enormous red and white bus coming very slowly. Each window had a head in it. The bus was quite full of people. Gooney Bird was amazed. Even though she had lived in Water Tower only a short time, about a week, she knew that the town of Water Tower did not have enormous red and white buses. Water Tower had 2 medium-sized yellow school buses. Gooney Bird knew. And she knew also that one of the Water Tower churches had a small white bus, really a long van, that had a rainbow painted on it and said Jesus is Lord on each side. But an enormous red and white bus was completely new to Water Tower. As Gooney Bird watched, it moved very, very slowly down Walnut Street. She could see that the driver, though he was steering carefully, was also trying to look at a map in his hands. The bus driver saw Gooney Bird and he beeped his horn, a very small beep. He pulled the bus to a stop with a very breathy sound of brakes. Then he pushed the handle that opened the folding door. "Excuse me," the bus driver said. "You look as if you're on your way to school." "Yes, I am," Gooney Bird replied, "and I certainly don't want to be late. I am never, ever late." The bus driver looked as if he might begin to cry. "I feel exactly the same way," he said. "I am never, ever late, but this morning I have a terrible problem." He held up his unfolded map. "Do you need help folding your map?" Gooney Bird asked. "It is hard to fold a map, but I find that if you follow the creases very carefully." "No," the bus driver said. "My problem is that I'm lost." "Oh dear," Gooney Bird said. And the driver continued, "We are going to be late for a concert." "A concert?" "Yes, I have an entire symphony orchestra on this bus." Gooney Bird paused. "Questions about orchestras?" she asked. Barry Tuckerman was waving his hand wildly. "We know all the parts of an orchestra. We listened to A Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra." "Winds," Ben called. "Strings," Tricia called. She pretended to play an imaginary violin. "Brass," Chelsea called. She tried to make a trombone noise, but not very successfully. "Percussion," said Malcolm loudly, and he began to tap 2 pencils in rhythm on his desk. "And also," Barry called out, his hand still waving, "we listened to Peter and the Wolf." "Oh," Keiko said in a small voice, "I hate when the wolf comes. Every time the wolf appears, I—" "Shh," the children said. Gooney Bird continued. So, Gooney Bird climbed up the steps and got on the bus. Every seat was filled. There were men and women in the bus, all of them dressed in black. All the men were wearing black turtleneck shirts. The women were all wearing long black skirts. They definitely looked like an orchestra, but they looked very distressed. "Where are you supposed to go?" Gooney Bird asked the bus driver. "To the Town Hall Auditorium," he said. "We are supposed to play a concert there this morning." He looked at his watch. "It begins in 20 minutes, he said in a worried voice. "I will get you there," Gooney Bird said. The bus driver called to the orchestra players. "This wonderful girl is going to direct us," he said. "Yay!" the orchestra players all called. Luckily, even though she had lived in Water Tower for only a week, Gooney Bird knew exactly where the Town Hall Auditorium was because her father had pointed out when they drove around the town. "There is the hospital," her father had said. "Go there if you happen to fall from a ladder and break your arm." "There is the police station," he had said. "Go there if you happen to see a bank robber on the loose." "And there is the Town Hall Auditorium," her father had said. "Go there if you want to see a ballet or a concert." "Start the bus," Gooney Bird told the driver, "and turn right at the very next corner." It was a good thing that she was wearing her long black gloves. When she pointed, everyone could see her long black pointing finger. There was no place for Gooney Bird to sit down, and we all know that it is dangerous to stand while a bus is going. But she had no choice. She stood beside the driver and held on to the side of his seat. He promised to drive very, very carefully. "Next, turn left," Gooney Bird said, and pointed. "And there we are," she told him. "See that large brick building? That is the Town Hall Auditorium." "Yay!" the orchestra players called again. The women began to comb their hair. "Thank you for directing us," they all said to Gooney Bird as they got out of the bus. The driver had opened the luggage compartment and was lifting out cellos. "You will be late for school," one man said as he picked up a large black case. "Trombone," he explained. Yes, I will, Gooney Bird said. I will be tardy. Is there some way that we can thank you for leading our orchestra? He said. Gooney Bird thought for a moment. Finally, she thought of a way, and she whispered it to the trombone player. He nodded yes, and he said, "We will do that." One by one, the musicians thanked Gooney Bird. She said goodbye and hurried down the street to Water Tower Elementary School. She arrived at school just as the class was about to read cities in their social studies books. The end. Questions, anyone? Gooney Bird asked. Was there a drum player? Malcolm asked. Yes, Gooney Bird said. Every single part of a symphony orchestra was there, even a harp. Oh, Malcolm said, sighing. I wish I could have seen the drum player. I love the drums. You will, Gooney Bird said. Was there a flute player? Chelsea asked. 2, Gooney Bird said. I wish I could hear the flute players, Chelsea said. You will, Gooney Bird said. I have a question, Gooney Bird, Mrs. Pigeon said. What was it that you whispered to the trombone player? Secret, Gooney Bird said, but you'll find out at 12 o'clock sharp. That's lunchtime, Mrs. Pigeon pointed out. Precisely, Gooney Bird said. Now, shall we turn to our social studies? All morning the children, and Mrs. Pigeon too, glanced again and again at the big clock on the wall. They did social studies and arithmetic and had a snack in the middle of the morning. Then they did reading and art. Finally, just as the clock hands moved to 12 o'clock and the second graders were about to reach for their lunch boxes, Gooney Bird announced, "Here they are." She pointed to the large windows on the side of the classroom. The children all stood up and watched through the windows as a red and white bus pulled up and parked. When the door of the bus opened, the orchestra players came out one by one, holding their instruments. They arranged themselves in a semicircle on the lawn, facing the Water Tower Elementary School. The conductor, holding a baton, stepped to the center and lifted his arms. Too bad he doesn't have long black gloves, Gooney Bird murmured. Mrs. Pigeon opened the window so that they could hear better. The orchestra began to play a slow, stately melody. When it was finished, the conductor bowed. Then he turned to the windows and explained. That was a saraband. It's a kind of dance. We'll play it one more time in honor of Gooney Bird Greene. So the orchestra played the short saraband again, and the children danced around the classroom in a very serious and graceful way.